So, Crystal, what's on your radar today?
Well, when I was on Bill Maher last weekend, he threw out a question that had me actually momentarily stumped. Who would Nicole Wallace, Steve Schmidt, and the other never Trump type Republicans be voting for? Honestly, I'd never really thought about it. Nothing against these people, but it had frankly never occurred to me to care. I mean, why would we look to a group of Republicans who just want Trump out of the way so they can get back to regime change wars and Trump-style tax cuts for the rich, but without so much uncouth language? It's also a group of people who honestly barely exist in the wild. As much as I would love to imagine that there's this massive group of voters out there who are lifelong Republicans that have seen the light, they just don't really exist. The Never Trump Republican can only be found in the sanctuaries of cable news green rooms and Sunday show panels. But now, thanks to David Drucker over at Washington Examiner, we have an answer to Maher's query. Never Trumpers are riding with Biden. It makes sense, really. Is there any group who stands to gain more from returning to a pre-Trump era when they could ride roughshod over Democrats and make life miserable for poor people, but with enough plausible deniability and only racist undertones instead of overtones so that they can successfully cash in at the end of their quote-unquote service rather than winding up in a lime green shirt being ritually humiliated on Dancing with the Stars? There also appears to be consensus in the group on who would be completely unacceptable. You're not going to be surprised. Per Jerry Taylor of the Niskanen Center, any electoral outcome that doesn't return Donald Trump to the White House is a good outcome, save for the wild card of Bernie Sanders. Yes, Donald Trump is an existential threat, but maybe not as much of an existential threat as actually empowering working class people. Now, in another segment of the Morning Joe caucus, there's a similar hand-wringing going on. At a Biden fundraiser yesterday, billionaire casino magnate Neil Bloom said that Warren and Bernie, quote, don't represent the Democratic Party that he supports. Now, this is a man who hosted Barack Obama's 49th birthday party and has given to candidates like HRC and Rahm Emanuel. I guess it was all well and good as long as no one was going to raise his taxes or let his workers freely exercise their right to unionize. Now, I know this is the point where I'm supposed to say we're a big tent party, but yeah, no, these people can go somewhere else. Let's take Bloom as a specific example here. He's a notorious union buster. His casinos have been charged numerous times with unfair labor practices. I'm not sad he wants to leave the party. I'm sad he ever felt at home here to start with. Perhaps there was once an argument that you needed these people to fund the party, but we don't need these people anymore for anything. We don't have to listen to their whining about how we're too mean to CEOs or Wall Street or care about their dreams of cutting Social Security or endure their anti-union rants. Consider that in 2018, Democrats witnessed an explosion of online fundraising. Nearly 5 million individual donors gave to candidates across the country through ActBlue alone. Or consider that of the 3 top candidates, 2 of them have forsworn big dollar events for the primary. Now, Warren does leave open the possibility she'll go back to them in the general, but Sanders just passed the 1 million individual donor mark. Astonishing. And not one of those donors is a billionaire. Not one. Look, here's the deal. The Republican Party is supposed to be the party of the rich. When things really started to go off the rails in American politics is when the Democratic Party also became the party of the rich. That's how you end up with endless fixations on striking grand bargains to cut Social Security. That's how you end up with NAFTA and TPP and no jail time after the big financial bailout. It's my goal to return the Democratic Party to its FDR roots as the champion of the working class. So for me, people like Bloom dropping out, that's called progress. Repulsing the conservative sensibilities of the Never Trumpers is actually essential. So yes, Neil Bloom, this party doesn't represent you anymore. Because the truth is, whether or not Biden hangs on to win the nomination based on Obama nostalgia, his brand of neoliberalism has already lost. Medicare for all, the Green New Deal, and taxing billionaires are the new order of the day. And if you're not down for that, you owe it to yourself and everyone else to move along. Inez, I think that there is a real sort of battle for the soul of the Democratic Party going on, but honestly, in a lot of ways, it's already been won. You see where the energy of the party is, you see where things are heading, and if this guy's not happy, if other people like him want to go to the Republicans, want to start their own like polite plutocrats party, it's fine with me.
Look, I think you're right about the Democratic Party. I think that is where the energy is, and frankly, it's funny to me that you bring up Bill Maher and being on Bill Maher. I think the same thing about liberal Democrats, right? And I mean liberal in the classic sense, like Bill Maher, right?
Yeah.
So sort of very in favor of free speech, very willing to sort of still go along with some things that perhaps the cancel crowd does not particularly find amusing anymore. But I think you're right that these are both very small groups of people. Overwhelmingly, you see the electorate moving more in the Trumpian direction on the Republican Party and more in the very far left progressive wing of the party, a marriage of, in fact, socialist economics and identity politics on the left. And I don't think that these folks in the middle are going to be particularly happy, but I also don't see a political need for either party to pander to.
Well, and Trump has made it more comfortable, frankly, for them to go back to the Republican Party or move into the Republican Party by acting as more of a traditional conservative than he campaigned as. I mean, he did the tax cuts for the rich. He's done the judges. He's done the deregulatory stuff. He's gone after the EPA. These are all sort of things that in another life, especially the Never Trumpers, would have loved and applauded.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's why you see Never Trump shrink so much, right? I think not just Never Trump, but let's say barely Trump Republicans.
Yeah.
Republicans who were uncomfortable with Trump, they voted for him in a general to prevent President Hillary, but they were very uncertain about him. Remember, he won the primary with basically 30% of the Republican Party.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of those fears have been allayed. This has been a president with a conservative agenda. We've gotten, conservative judges appointed. We've gotten originalist judges appointed. A lot of his agenda has been kind of standard Republican, and in fact, some of the critiques in the Republican Party was we sent this guy in to be a wrecking ball in D.C. The system seems to have contained him a lot more than a lot of Republicans expected. But yeah, I don't think you're going to see big defections. He has usually approval ratings anywhere from 89 to 94% within the Republican Party. I don't think that it's probably productive for the Democratic Party to chase the votes of what I think you accurately termed as a few people in green rooms.
Yeah, it's a handful of people. Let's not worry about them. Next on Rising, more of my conversation with 2020 candidate Andrew Yang. You don't want to miss his thoughts on the wealth tax and the current labor movement resurgence.
The Hill's editor-in-chief, Bob Cusack, also joins us. He'll break down the latest news from the Warren and Sanders campaigns. All this when Rising returns.